Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast. I'm your host, Christian Harris. My guests today are Mike and Chris from a business called Oversea, and they've developed a really interesting product which I think is best in class, it's fair to say, that helps to deal with the risks of a remote workforce, of managing what's going on in your buildings and really understanding what risks are present and what you're doing about it, but also helps to manage your reputational risks as well, and has benefits when it comes to insurance and claims defensibility. It's a very clever piece of technology, or a technology stack, as Mike will actually tell us, and I thought it'd be a great one to share with you, to give you some insight into some of the trends that are going on, both in terms of risk and technology, and show you or talk about, shall I say, what Oversea does and how it might help. I'm sure you'll get a lot from this, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's crack on and speak to Mike and Chris from Oversea. Mike and Chris from Oversea, welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast.
Hi, thank you for having us on.
No problem. I thought since there's two of you, we'll avoid trying to speak over each other and sort of split this into two. So perhaps if we start with you, Mike, perhaps you could give a bit of background about yourself and then a bit of background on the company, since you're the man that sets it all up.
Yeah, sure. So my background, very similar to Chris, is ex-forces, and having left the armed forces, I naturally ended up in the world of security, where I had my own security company, which I sold quite a few years ago now. And really, that experience of running a facilities management style service was the catalyst of me getting involved in Oversea as it is today.
Yeah, makes sense. And so what were the sort of, given that background and having run that sort of business, what were the kind of challenges that you confronted that made you kind of think of the concept of Oversea as a solution?
Yeah, I think the challenges are typical for anyone operating and running a remote workforce. And that is that you don't get the luxury of walking into your office every day and being able to say hi to your staff. You don't have that ability to necessarily motivate them when things aren't going the way that you want them to. I mean, the pandemic is an absolute classic example of how we all now realize what it's like to work remotely.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're running a service-based business, not having real-time visibility of the delivery of that service, the quality of that service, how that customer is being interacted with is a major issue. So for me, there were two distinct issues to resolve. One was having collaboration with the workforce, and the other was having real-time visibility and transparency of the quality of the service that the client was receiving.
Yeah. And when you came up with that idea, and obviously those are two themes that I can fully buy into from running my business and helping other businesses, that there's a need for that. Was it designed to be a tool for the contractor, or was it designed to be a tool for the client? So in other words, was it something that the client could use to see and check what was being delivered, or was it trying to be an added value thing from the contractor perspective?
I think in the very early stages, it was very much targeted as being a tool for the contractor. Mm-hmm. I put myself in the employer section and effectively built the product from the ground up. One of the things that is very unique, I think, with Oversea is that we really do involve the frontline workers in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And recently we polled 1,000 frontline workers to understand what is it about technology that would help you be more productive, help you communicate better with your colleagues and your peers, and so on and so forth. And all of that feedback then gets put into our roadmap of how we then deliver our products for them. But we built this very much from the ground up, but from a contractor point of view.
Yeah.
That has now very much changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changed in that the facility owner is now, and I think this is really with the explosion of sensors and IoT, they now want to be involved in this data. They want to visualize and understand what's actually happening in my premises. How can I get smarter in my own operation of what's going on? So we're starting to see something that was initially concepted for managing remote workforces. As data has evolved, we're now starting to see a significant shift from the actual venue owners now wanting to own the data.
Yeah, and I've seen a demo which Chris and one of your colleagues ran through with me, and I was very impressed, because I think, you know, there are bits of technology out there that sort of do kind of similar sorts of things, but yours was by far the most kind of advanced and in depth that I could see, certainly from a building owner perspective, having that kind of ability to see exactly what's going on and track it and really monitor it and stuff. I think that's you know, very impressive.
Yeah, I think I probably can't sort of overestimate the value of bringing the workforce into the design process itself, because if you're going to have any technology product that's going to be successful, people have to use it.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the biggest complaints that came back from the workforce in the surveys that we did was that products were built by managers, and managers don't then use the products, right? So you end up with this workforce with a piece of technology that was never invented for them to use, and therefore, guess what? It doesn't get used, or the information that's in there isn't there. And there's something else to consider as well when you look at frontline workers in this country. English might not necessarily be their first language. A lot of people that come into the retail or into facilities management sector, they may well be from other countries, and this is their first rung on the UK employment ladder. So again, having a product that's not intuitive, that doesn't feel right, or you need training. And that's the one thing about the Oversee product for us, is that very like I suppose the Apple ethos, that you should be able to use it straight out of the box wherever you're from, right?
Yeah.
And I think that for us is why a lot of people like what they see with our product, because we've gone over and above with our user experience and the employee experience, engaging them, and the little things that people wouldn't think of. Why can't employees give each other a thumbs up when they've done a good job, or created a great incident? You know, another big complaint that came was that all the information that normal products are is data pushed down. There was no way for employees to be able to put information back up to management. And of course, we resolve these things. So I think, you know, the secret to delivering successful technology into a workplace is making sure the workplace are part of the design process.
Yeah, I'd agree with that from a you know, not from your specialist area, I suppose, but just thinking about it from, let's say, a CRM perspective. You know, I've been in charge of teams and trying to implement CRM systems before, and it all looks good on paper, but actually it's only ever going to get used if the people that need to use it are bought into it and understand the benefits and want to use it. I think that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's moving away from something that I suppose you're told to use to something that you want to use. So that those little features of liking and things like that seem like a good way of sort of gamifying it to make it more attractive for the operatives to use.
Yeah, and I'd go one stage further than that as well, and I'd say that for companies that think that gamifying is you know, is something to be left on a, you know, in the evening on your PS3 or what have you, the numbers say it for themselves, right? So we have statistics here that show where our products are deployed in those venues. there's an 88% reduction in customer complaints. There's a 20% increase in staff satisfaction, 17% reduction in costs, 12% increase in staff retention. And these are all business costs one way or another. So I think that when people evaluate technology, there's a lot more than just the price of the product. It's what does the product deliver, and how do you measure that? That really, from an Oversea point of view, is where I suppose we slightly stand out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought those statistics up, because that was the next thing I was going to ask you, is kind of, what sorts of ROI can we see, and the deliverables and things. And as you say, it's not about the tech. It's not even about the output of the tech as such in terms of the data that it produces, but it's actually what does going through that process do in terms of, as you say, productivity and customer satisfaction and all these bigger board level things. And that's, I suppose, where the ROI conversation becomes not easier, because I suppose it's never easy to get people to invest in new things, but it becomes a bit broader and a bit bigger, and about topics that boards will resonate with perhaps more than tracking of data.
Yeah, and I think that the events of the last year have taken some of the barriers of technology adoption and digital transformation away. I think people realize that being hostage to paper-based processes and then suddenly realizing that you're locked indoors with no idea of when you're going to get back to the factory or back to the shopping center or back to the airport, wherever it was that you may have been. But here's the interesting thing. Maintenance, cleaners, security, and lots of other trades were considered essential workers. Yeah. Management were not, right? So you've got an army of people operating in your venue, and yet you're stuck at home with no visibility of that. Mm-hmm. That, for me, is what's changing. People now realize that this connection that we've had with manual and paper-based processes simply do not work anymore.
Agreed. And there's another context actually where manual and paper-based processes aren't hugely beneficial, and I'll use that as a good segue to bring in Chris, because from an insurance claims defensibility perspective, I work in the field of slips and falls, and we see a lot of cases that kind of fall down, if you excuse the pun, because of a lack of evidence, a lack of paperwork, and over reliance on these manual processes. And I think I'm right in saying that this whole risk management piece is another angle and another benefit of the system, and that's why Chris got involved. Chris, you've got the honour of being the first two-time guest on the podcast, but do you want to just give another quick recap of your background, and then perhaps you could give us a flavour of kind of what attracted you to Oversea? What did you see in it from a risk management perspective?
Sure. So yeah, by way of background, quite quickly, I'm a former Royal Marine Commando, so risk management is in my DNA for the purpose of just self-preservation, and that's where it was all started. And then somewhere in between leaving the armed forces, I stumbled into insurance, worked at Willis Tower Watson, helping companies that were going into administration, actually working on Blockbusters, HMV, and a few big retailers, and kind of learned quite quickly that if you know how to break a company, you know how to build one and fix one quite easily. And I really enjoyed that. Ended up working at QBE, which is where I really got into insurance in terms of risk management and claims. And my whole role there and purpose of my teams were to improve the risk profile and to reduce claims frequency, so it's more profitable for the underwriter, the insurer, and also as a great benefits to the end customer, the insured as well, because of course their premiums become more advantageous. And their deductibles improve as well. So effectively, they've got more money on the bottom line.
And what was it about Oversea that sort of attracted you?
So whilst I was at QBE, going back to the beginning, I quickly found out that we were a bunch of risk managers and engineers that would go out, stick our heads in the doors of our customers' businesses of manufacturing, retail, construction, you name it, we were there, chemical plants. And we would leave a list of recommendations, a to-do list to try and improve their businesses, but customers alone couldn't do it. You know, they had their day jobs to get on with. So it wasn't particularly helpful that we would just give them these to-do lists and say, we'll come back in 3 months, 6 months and make sure you've done it. So we wanted to add more value, and we were never going to get in the lab and start engineering technology, start bringing out wearable technology, bring out specialist or special market expertise to help with all of those solutions that they needed. So I went out into the market and I looked for best in breed companies that I could assemble, of which Slip Safety Services was one of them, to come in to deploy to those customers to try and improve the risk profile with the recommendations that we had made. And for example, you know, things like floor restoration, slip resistance integrity, one of the biggest claims causations in the UK and actually the global market for casualty. Stuff like manual handling, wearable technology to know when your staff are moving inappropriately. But a lot of those solutions were, as I mentioned, very sort of, they are siloed and very specialist and niche. And there was, from an insurer's perspective, a need, I suppose, to knit it all together, to bring it together in more of an holistic solution. And really to try and create symphony between health and safety and facilities management and the insurance program. The two were far removed. You know, there was an insurance manager working at company A that would deal with all of the claims and the problems going on, and then there were facility managers and health and safety managers, and the two would rarely speak. Now that's beginning to change. We met a big retailer yesterday, and they had brought the teams together, which was brilliant to see. So that is starting to change. When I met Mike just over a year ago and saw what Oversea had, I kind of wish I'd seen it when I was at QBE, because it changed everything. It was that holistic solution I was looking for. And most importantly, it had connectivity with the frontline workers, which is where all of the risk profile is predominantly maintained, and with the insurance. And so I quickly saw the opportunity for potentially connected insurance across casualty and property. And that was the main draw to coming along.
Yeah, I mean, what you've explained there is something that I see time and again. I talk of it as vertical and horizontal silos. So everybody's familiar with the kind of horizontal silo, which is, as you say, insurance doesn't talk to facilities management, doesn't talk to health and safety, doesn't talk to finance as much as they should. But there's also that vertical silo, which, as you say, the software, the tool helps to address, because there's, you know, communication between the board and the shop floor and everything in between, and things can sometimes get lost. So something that knits all of that together is very, very powerful. Absolutely. So from a risk management perspective, then, is this about? Well, tell me, what's it about? Is it about prevention? Is it about defensibility? Is it a bit about both?
It's the whole ecosystem of risk management. So quite interestingly, this is a stat I learned not too long ago, actually, and I haven't stopped saying it ever since. It just astonishes me. To 2.7 billion people in the world are frontline workers, which is 80% of our global population. It's just astonishing. That's the working force of the world, are frontline workers. So anything that you do to try and influence, make their lives easier, and, you know, has a direct impact to them first and foremost, but then a indirect impact to their employers, to customers, and then everybody else that sort of walks through the door or interacts with their business. I suppose the risk management opportunity, from an insurance perspective and from a sort of direct customer's perspective, insurance premiums are one of the highest single expenses in businesses today, you know, alongside things like real estate costs, you know, employee headcount costs, things like that. So it's a substantial sum, and moving the dial on that by 1% or a few percent can save millions in some cases, if you look at enterprise or multinational sized businesses. But 70% of that premium is made up of claims. And as a combination of, you know, your attritional claims, the ones which are quite small and reoccur frequently, like slips, trips and falls, and then your large catastrophic claims, which could be, you know, your weather damage, things like that, and other perils. So to take control of the premium, you have to take control of the claims. Now, the way to be able to do that, when a claim occurs, there's always symptoms that lead up to that incident, you know, whether it's a slip, trip or fall, whether it's, you know, somebody falling down an escalator, water damage, that kind of thing. There are near misses which occur, and those near misses are symptoms that an incident is going to happen. So by the very nature of what we do at Oversea is capturing near misses brilliantly and across all teams in a collaborative way. And by capturing those near misses, you're proactively managing risk. You're getting on top of it before it escalates into something that's going to become an incident. And if you have fewer incidents, just by the very nature, you have fewer claims. It's really as simple as that. But then to go a step further, that's the proactive end. But things do go wrong, and accidents do happen. We know, it's the real world. And the ability for frontline workers now to be able to capture evidence immediately and to be able to put that into a logged, shared platform, it makes all of the difference to the claims outcome, because that evidence is what enables somebody to, first of all, make a quick decision on liability. Do they want to defend the claim, or do they not choose to defend the claim and wish to pay it quickly in early settlement? And secondly, if they do want to defend it, you've got the evidence there in order to be able to do so. So by those two things, they are greatly influencing that 70+% cost of your total premium. So over time, it's going to not necessarily erode down or bring down your premium. Of course, insurers don't like to do that, but it will positively influence it, and it will try to prevent those nasty spikes year on year that reoccur above inflation by keeping down your sort of claims reserves and things like that. So it really is the sort of tool in the armory for the frontline workers to be able to better manage incidents and to capture the correct evidence needed. And we're working with some frontline law firms at the moment about how we can now automate those notifications of a potential claim to them through red flags. So for instance, if in an incident somebody's gone to hospital or a RIDDLE report has been completed, they are good indicators that there is a potential claim coming through. And if your insurer or law firm or claims handler can be aware of that quite quickly, it gives them the advantage to be able to help and support you in better managing that claim. And again, that it all makes a big contribution to the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Chris. Mike, just turning back to you, we've talked a lot about all the great stuff that the product can deliver, but we probably haven't actually explained in sort of layman's terms what it is. So do you want to just give a quick overview of kind of, in layman's terms, how it all works and what people get and the tech, I suppose, effectively?
Yeah, so I suppose it's quite a big technology stack that we have, because we provide the full experience end to end. So what does that mean? We deliver and can receive information from sensors inside a physical building. Those sensors could be anything that tell us about the temperature, the air quality. Those sensors can tell us whether doors have been opened or closed, all sorts of different inputs. But more importantly, we use sensors to monitor tasks that need to be conducted within that facility, whatever that might be. So for instance, it might be that fire extinguishers need to be checked, and we will have very, very small, low-cost sensors on all of the equipment. And when the person arrives to do that work, their mobile device automatically recognizes the asset and the task that they're doing, and will push to the device any kind of form or assistance that they may need to be able to complete that task whilst they're there. So again, because we know who they are, where they are, and what asset they're doing, the amount of things that they need to tell us about on a mobile device is maybe three things, i.e. the asset's okay, I want to take a picture or a video of it or what have you, because we've done the hard work of filling in the rest of the information.
Yeah.
And then all of that then goes off to what we call our dynamic monitoring engine, which is effectively the brain of Oversee.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, that's where we have all of the automation of that task. We have, all of our sort of machine learning, how we're getting cleverer and cleverer about the information that we've just received, and what the rules are with regards to that task. So, was there anything that was missing? For instance, if it was an incident, as Chris was talking about earlier, that someone had collected and filled in on a device, we may say, actually, I've got your claim form here or your incident report, but I'm going to ask you a question because in the last 10 incidents that we've received, we know that this question has been missed and it's really important. So I'm going to go back to you there and then in real time to get that information. Yeah. And then, of course, once we've gathered all this information from this real-time venue, is that we then share that. We got output. So that could be notifications that we send to people. It could be our dashboards, which is the thing that most people recognize Oversee for because they're highly stylized maps of the facility and gives real-time permission, visibility of where people are at any point in time and what's actually happening. And all of that information is there. But the underlying bit of technology for Oversee is the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And what that's doing is effectively looking at insights and predicting. And based upon everything that the workforce is doing and all the information that we have, we can start to predict by looking at behavioral analytics of what's likely going to happen next. And then we can advise management so they can make smarter decisions. Yep. So it is a lot of information. It's a lot of data, but the output is to help that venue and help that staff run better. And I think what Chris was talking about, risk, from my side, I look at that from a frontline worker in helping to provide a culture of prevention. Yeah. And that's really what we're using the tech to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's an impressive what you've managed to build. And what do you see, obviously right now, there's a big focus on trying to get this into more buildings and get more case studies and proof of the pudding. But in terms of like the tech stuff, do you think that there's going to be any more rapid advancements over the next few years, or do you kind of feel like you've got this great product and now's the time to try and get it out there and get it used? Because we've said that before, you've got to get tech used.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think that where I see the future is more intelligence, mm-hmm. And that intelligence being shared with the front line. Because at the moment, when you look at frontline workers and they're working with analog and manual processes, then they can only do what's on that piece of paper. Yeah. When you start getting more intelligent data and you're able to share that data with the workforce, then the workforce are more capable of doing more things. And that is where I see the future going over the next sort of 5 years. Now we've accepted that we need to equip the workforce with technology. It's now sharing and allowing that sharing of that data with the workforce to make them more optimized and to help them to do more things. And here's the real interesting thing. That's what the workforce want. Yeah. You don't have employees that want to be, not doing anything. They want to be energized. They want to be empowered to do new things. And I think that data and intelligence will allow that to happen.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, I've, with what I do, I've worked with, I don't know, tens of thousands probably of cleaning operatives over the years. And, those people before the pandemic anyway, where we started recognizing that industry more, would often get a bit of a short shrift from others about their motives and intentions and whatever. But actually, everybody that I've ever found, 99.999% want to do a good job, but actually they weren't being empowered, equipped, educated, supported, enough to do as good a job as they would want to have done. So anything that can do that and give them that ability, that power to do a better job, I think will have massive outcomes for everybody. Because using Chris's stat of 2.7 billion people, I think if that was the right number, if we can even just improve, think about the principle of marginal gains. If we can improve productivity and output from those people by even 0.1%, that's massive. Never mind if we can do more. So certainly think you're onto something there. In terms of learning more, then, if people have listened into this and feel like it's interesting, want to learn more, what's the best way of finding out more information or contacting you guys? Or are there any particular webinars or social media or websites or things that you'd point people to?
I think most of it will be available if they will be signpost from our website, which is over-c.com. And I think from there, we've got a number of videos and again, some case studies that people can read. Yeah, please, and anyone would like to get in touch, please do so. Great. And before I let you go, anything I missed, anything I should have asked you that I forgot to or didn't? Not that I can think of. That's a good sign then. That shows I've done a decent job. Chris, anything else you wanted to cover from a risk perspective?
No, nothing more. I just think that the timing's very poignant, with the pandemic now sort of hopefully winding down, everybody going back to work. This is a really poignant time to be having these conversations and pivoting change and adopting technology. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, video meetings and tech is it's always been the way of the future, but it's now the way of the present, isn't it? So I think it's now time for people to embrace this kind of technology and really push on and try and drive better outcomes in their business. So well done for helping people on that journey. Well, thanks guys very much for your time. Thanks everybody for tuning in as well. Please subscribe, please like, please comment on the social media and things like that. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of the podcast. Good stuff. Thank you guys. Well done.
No worries.
That was okay, yeah?
That was good.